So today we're jumping into a topic that's honestly turning the whole React world on its head, React Server Components. And I want to be clear right from the start, this isn't just some small update or a new library. No, this is a fundamental shift in how we even think about building a React app, where it lives, where it runs, the whole shebang.
For as long as I can remember, being a web developer has meant facing this impossible choice. It's like you're at a crossroads. Do you go left and build something that loads in a flash but feels kind of dead, kind of static? Or do you go right and build this amazing, super interactive app, but your user has to sit there staring at a blank screen waiting for a mountain of JavaScript to download? It's been a real pick-your-poison situation.
All right, let's really get into it. To see why server components are such a game changer, we gotta take a quick look back at how we got here, at the history of this whole mess.
Okay, so here are the classic options we've had. First, you've got client-side rendering, CSR. This is what gave us those super interactive app-like experiences. But the trade-off is massive, right? The dreaded white screen of death while the browser downloads gigabytes of JavaScript, or at least it feels like it. Then, on the other side, you have server-side rendering, or SSR. This one's clever. It sends a fully formed HTML page so the user sees something right away. Fast first impression. But, and it's a big but, the page is just a pretty picture at first. The browser still has to download all that JavaScript in the background and then hydrate the page. It's like pouring water on a freeze-dried meal to bring it back to life. And until that's done, you're clicking on buttons and nothing happens. Super frustrating.
So what's the result of all this? Well, it's this constant tug of war. We're always stuck fighting this battle between making an experience that loads fast versus one that's actually rich and powerful to use. And that right there, that core conflict, is exactly what React Server Components were invented to solve. So, enter the new contender. And look, React Server Components, or RSCs for short, they aren't just another tool in the toolbox. This is something else entirely. It's a whole new type of component that basically splits your React app right down the middle. The core idea is actually pretty simple to say, but its implications are massive. A React Server component runs only on the server. That's it. Let that sink in. The JavaScript for that component, it never, ever makes the trip to the user's browser. All the browser gets is the final rendered HTML. The code itself stays put on the server. This changes everything about how we have to think. You have to throw out the old mental model of your app being this one big thing that runs in the browser. It's not that anymore. Your app is now a distributed system. You have pieces of it, actual components, running on the server, and other pieces running on the client. And they're talking to each other across what's called a network boundary, which is just a fancy way of saying the internet.
And, okay, one of the first things that makes developers' eyes light up is this. Because these components live on the server, they can just be async. You can literally just write async/await right inside your components function to go grab data. I mean, come on, no more wrestling with useEffect for simple data fetching. It just cleans up the code so much. It's a huge, huge win.
Okay, so great. New model, async await, cool. But what problems does this actually solve? Well, this whole thing wasn't just invented for fun. It was specifically designed to target some of the oldest, most annoying headaches in web dev. First on the hit list is something called the waterfall problem. And trust me, you've definitely felt the pain of this, even if you've never heard the term before.
So here's how that waterfall works in a classic app. Imagine a page. First, the main component has to load. Okay, step 1. Then, it has to make a request back to the server to get its data. Step 2. Only after that data comes back can its child component even start to render. Step 3. And what does the child do? It makes another trip back to the server for its data. Step 4. Each one of those is a slow, painful round trip over the internet. RSCs just demolish this problem. Since all these components are already on the server sitting right next to the database, they can get all the data they need almost instantly. It turns all those back and forth trips into one single efficient operation.
All right, the next big promise is a wild one. It's the idea of zero bundle size components. And yeah, it sounds a little like magic, but it's very real.
Think about it. Let's say you need to display a blog post. You might pull in a big library just to parse the markdown, or maybe a heavy date formatting library for all your timestamps. In the old world, all that library code gets packed up and shipped to the user's browser. With server components, that code never leaves the server. The markdown parser runs, it generates the HTML, and then, poof, its job is done. The user only gets the result. This can absolutely slash your JavaScript bundle size, sometimes by a massive amount.
And the wins just keep stacking up.
Because we're sending a more complete page from the server, the user sees content way faster. That's your first contentful paint. And since there's less JavaScript for the browser to chew on, the page becomes clickable and interactive sooner too. That's your time to interactive. Oh, and here's a big one: security. All your secret API keys, your database credentials, they can live inside a server component completely safe and never ever get exposed to the client's browser. That alone is a huge deal.
Okay, I know this all sounds like the perfect solution, but it's not magic. This new power comes with a whole new rulebook, and you absolutely have to understand the realities and the trade-offs involved.
So here's the first big rule change. In this new world, everything is a server component by default. You have to actively choose to make something a client component. And how do you do that? With this one little line of code at the very top of a file: use client. That's it. That one line is the magic boundary. It's you telling React, hey, this thing right here, it needs to be interactive. It needs state, it needs click handlers, so please pack up its code and send it to the browser.
And this creates a really clear separation of duties. Think of it like this. Server components are for fetching. They grab data, they can talk to your database, they do all the heavy lifting on the back end. They can't have state. Client components, on the other hand, are for interacting. They're the ones that use useState, uEffect, and handle all your click events. They make your app feel alive. Getting this split right in your head is pretty much the most important part of this whole new world.
But as always, this power, it definitely comes with a price. We have to be real here. This is not a silver bullet, and there are some pretty big hurdles to adopting this.
First off, the learning curve is no joke. You have to rewire your brain after years of thinking client first. Then there's the library problem. A ton of the NPM packages you know and love just won't work in a server component because they expect to be in a browser. You also have to be careful about something called serialization overhead. That's just the work it takes to package up data to send it from the server to the client. If you send too much complex stuff, you can actually make your app slower. And finally, right now, the whole ecosystem is still pretty new, and it's basically tied at the hip to big frameworks like Next.js. If you don't want to use a framework like that, you're kind of out of luck for now.
So it should come as no surprise that the developer community is pretty split on this. On one side, you have people who are absolutely convinced this is the future, that this is how we're going to build incredibly fast modern web apps. But on the other side, there's a lot of real frustration and skepticism. People are struggling with the complexity, annoyed by the new rules, and don't like feeling forced into using a specific framework.
And so all of this leaves us with the million-dollar question, doesn't it? React server components give us a way to finally get the best of both worlds, the raw speed of the server and the rich interactivity of the client. But is all this new complexity, this steep learning curve, is that just the price of admission for building a truly modern web? That's the huge debate happening in the community right now, and honestly, the answer is going to shape the future of how we all build for the web. Thanks so much for diving into this with me.